So this is a 2011 Street Glide. I'm going to do the rocker locker. Getting a lot of noise out of the rockers since I rebuilt the motor about a year ago. I put a lot of performance parts on it. It's about 110 horsepower right now. But the ticking from the heads is driving me nuts. So basically you just got to pull the main fuse. It's 4 bolts for the gas tank. One here, one over here. And I just leave the overflow tube on. Disconnect the fuel pump. And I think this is the vent line. It's easier to disconnect it here than to pull it out. It's a real motherfucker to get it back in. So basically I gotta loosen up the bolts there. Take these 2 bolts completely out and slide the brass bushings in. They're basically just bushings that slide in just on the right side. The directions are not very good, but this is basically what I'm going to do is slide the bushing in to these 2 on each rocker assembly. We'll see how it goes. So right now the bike is jacked up. I have the spark plugs out of it. I put the front cylinder on top dead center, so there should be no pressure. A lot of pressure on the push rods, so I can loosen that right up. These are tight, so you just have to rotate the tire till you get the front cylinder on top dead center. So I've taken all the bolts out. It says you can do it on the bike, but I think it's better to do it on the bench. And then that way I can replace the O-ring here and also clean out all the holes and put new Loctite on them. I think it'll be safer, but basically the sleeves go in there on the 2 front. You just got to make sure it's lined up properly. They give you this little tool to make sure that it's lined up, and it's supposed to help cut down on all this slop that's in there. So basically this is going to go in like that. Okay, so we're going to install the lockers, and you have to use this alignment tool to line up the flat spot on the shaft. They seem to be pretty good, and this is to cut down on the slop. There's so much slop in here that the shaft can rotate back and forth, plus it vibrates on the bolt. So you take the rocker locker, it's tapered so it only goes in one way. Put the bolt. Now there's very little play in there. And then we'll do the same thing for the other. should go in about that much. It comes with a nut and a washer. So that's it. Now we'll just reinstall it. Alright, the next thing, I'm just putting paper towels in the holes to try to get all the oil and crap out. Before I Loctite the bolts back in. Then I'll put the rocker assembly back. So I started tightening the rocker assembly, and you can see there's a little bit of a gap. So I put a little bit of pressure on the bolts, and I'm just gonna let it sit for 10-15 minutes and let the lifters bleed down a little bit, and then I'll come back and tighten it some more. So I had to tighten the bolts 3 or 4 times, each time letting it sit for about 10-15 minutes to make sure the lifters bled down. Don't want to bend the push rod. So now everything's torqued down, and you should be able to move the rockers back and forth so you know that there's no tension on it. So it should be all set. Now I'm going to move to the back rocker assembly. So now I'm going to rotate the rear tire to get the back cylinder on the base circle. So now we're looking at the front cylinder that we just did, and by rotating the tire, when you see both rocker assemblies moving, then you know the rear assembly should be on the base circle, and you can verify that by grabbing the intake and exhaust rocker and making sure they both float freely back and forth on the shaft, so it shows there's no pressure on it. So we should be set to take that apart. Okay, on the rear cylinder, when torquing it down, you're going to need something like this, a dog bone extension for your torque wrench. It's the only way to get the torque wrench in there. Without it, you will be just guessing, and you have to adjust your final torque for the extra length. There's a formula. These rocker bolts require 22 foot-pounds, and then with the extra length to the lever, it ends up being like 16 foot-pounds. So same thing as the front head. You just got to tighten them down a little bit, wait 10 minutes, let the lifters bleed down, tighten them up all another quarter turn, walk away, let it bleed down. Probably have to do it 3 or 4 times before it's flush. And then you can go through the torque sequence. So with the dog bone, these would be 16 foot-pounds. The breather is 130 inch-pounds. The 2 breather bolts in here. And then the cover bolts are 16 foot-pounds. So once you do all that stuff, I already started assembling the front. You should be good to go. Good luck. Thanks. So this is it all done now. It's definitely quieter. So I'm definitely happy with it. I think it was 20 bucks. Took 3 or 4 hours to do it. But if little things bother you, little ticks in the motor freaking bother you, this definitely is worth the trouble. Very happy with it, and it's a piece of cake. It really is. Good luck.